Hello, BookTube. Earlier today it was dark and wet and cold and rainy and windy, a midwinter day in the middle of late spring, and I went out in it. I went out in it voluntarily to do nothing that couldn't have waited. It's amazing when you report to a job every day. You're eager to come up with excuses not to, but when you're at home every day, you come up with reasons to leave. I do anyway, and I did, and it was a drastic mistake. I was miserable inside of a minute, and stayed that way until I got back here and showered, and had some heat and some food and some doggy kisses. uh, but I thought a surefire way to bring the mood right back to normal would be to do a mail haul, and it came in a plastic tub. I don't know if I can show this on camera. There we go. Came in a plastic tub, which it ordinarily doesn't do. It shows that either my mail carrier, my normal mail carrier, Tom from Tipperary, was in a very big hurry. Maybe it was downpouring when he came here, or more likely it was a new person. It was a different driver, somebody who didn't want to go through the bother of shoving these things through the slots individually, and so just left a tub full of books out on the porch in the rain. My ordinary driver, Tom, would never do that. But they seem to be no worse for wear, and there's a bunch of them. So let's start with this enormous cardboard thing, which ordinarily would elicit a complaint from me because they're so hard to open. You have to tear them apart. But this one comes already open. So in this case, I'm just glad the book didn't fall out completely. Still have to tear the package apart if you want to put it in any kind of pile. But what have we got here in the meantime? Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. This comes out in mid-July. Hoping that Boston's median temperature has gone up into the low 60s by mid-July. We'll see. But this is White Man's Game. It's by Stephanie Haynes, and the subtitle is Saving Animals, Rebuilding Eden, and Other Myths of Conservation in Africa. Let's see, the back cover copy here. The stunning Gorongosa National Park, once the crown jewel of Mozambique, was nearly destroyed by decades of civil war. It looked like a perfect place for Western philanthropy. Revive the park and tourists would return, a win-win outcome for the environment and the impoverished villagers living in the area. So why did some researchers find the local communities actually getting hungrier, sicker, and poorer as the project went on? And why did efforts to bring back wildlife become far more difficult than expected? And it's not just Mozambique. The advanced word that I've had on this thing is that it's a very realistic look at the massive efforts of game conservation in Africa. The only thing I don't know about it is whether or not it's ultimately optimistic. Even from being on foot over every inch of the game lands in Africa a long time ago, I still had the strong impression that the fight is absolutely doomed, and that the only animals that will be there, well, I said back then, I said at the turn of the millennium, that's come and gone. I still say that in your lifetime, the only animals that will end up being in Africa will be scrub animals like rats, voles, stuff like that, or service animals for humans, cattle, goats, pigs, and nothing else. No exotic megafauna of any kind. And I hope I'm wrong about that. If I was wrong about the turn of the millennium, maybe I'm wrong about the whole thing. That would be nice. It would be, in this instance, very nice to be wrong. But I've seen, home movies of friends of mine that go on safari in Africa, and the sight of it is incredibly depressing. Just a line of jeering, laughing, overfed white tourists standing there in the road filming one lone, obviously bewildered elephant who's using a road, who's walking on a road because it's warm and even. And what chance do animals have in a circumstance like that? What chance do huge roaming ungulates or huge roaming predators who need vast territories of their own, what chance do they have? And that's not even the worst of it, of course. The worst of it are the arboreal animals that not only are losing their habitat by the size of Vermont every single day, but who can be hunted in secrecy for food, and are. every day. Bushmeat is the horrific word. You go to an outside stall in Lagos or wherever and you'll see it. For sale at so much a pound. Bushmeat. Anyway, I will report back closer to. I'm not going to read it until summer, but closer to the date, I will report back. And I could be wrong. I'm hoping that I am. It's just that the present state of conservation in the world, the present state of the environment in the world, it's not exactly cause for optimism. But let's see here. What's the next one? We'll see if we can get something a little more engaging. In a positive way. And this comes out in the first week of May. And it is a little bit more engaging. It's by Joseph North. And it's Literary Criticism, A Concise Political History. Love the cover. A little worried from the title and the subtitle, it's going to be heavy on the academies. Literary criticism offers a concise overview of literary studies in the English-speaking world from the early 20th century to the present. Joseph North steps back from the usual tangle of figures, schools, and movements in order to analyze the intellectual paradigms that underpinned them. The result is a radically new account of the discipline's development, together with trenchant arguments about where the political future lies. Why are we hearing so much about politics in a book about literary criticism? Let's see if we can't figure out why that is, shall we? But let's look at the table of contents. Critical revolution turns right. The scholarly turn, contextual paradigm, critical unconscious. All right, that doesn't help us at all, so let's go to the index and see why we're talking about politics. Shakespeare has 1 entry. Tolstoy has 3. I.A. Richards has 100. Professionalization has 50. New criticism has 50. Liberalism has 100. Historicism has 100. William Faulkner has 3. Close reading has 50. Okay, so this is really going to be about academia. That might have something to do with why it's political. Well, we'll see. I mean, that aspect of literary criticism isn't my favorite, but I'm not interested in it. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the next one here. So far, a bit of a rainy day mail haul. We'll have to hope for a burst of sunlight here along the way. This thing's nice and heavy. What is this? Oh, very good. Okay, this is the... do I have a pub sheet? Have a sheet of any kind? No, I don't. Well, anyway, it's self-evident. This is a biography of Ernest Hemingway by Mary Dearborn, who I want to say is the first woman ever to write a full-length biography of Hemingway. It doesn't say here, but I had the advanced copy of this and never actually read it. And really wanted to. I just never got to it. So I will do this. I don't have a pub sheet for it, but I believe it's an April release. Or maybe May, no later than May. So I would need to get on it right away. And I was kind of extra curious to read it because I don't know if you remember on this channel I mentioned there was a new book, writer, soldier, something, spy about Hemingway, about his wartime exploits, and I read that and it didn't particularly trip my trigger. But there was also a new book called The Ambulance Drivers about Ernest Hemingway and John Dos Passos. Their friendship forged in near the front lines in World War I, and it's rocky progress. That was really good, and that I really wished were 3 times its length. Certainly there was a story to tell there. I don't know why the author was so coy and reticent about such a whopper of a story. But I also saw Hemingway's publisher is coming out with a new volume of his short stories. Just the short stories of Ernest Hemingway. Just a big, pretty volume is coming out. I think in the summer sometime. Just because the world is certainly in no need of another anthology of Hemingway short stories. They're just doing it because. And when I saw that was my first kick in the behind to get to this. And then all these other Hemingway things that have just been cropping up. So I'm glad I have this now. And such a pretty finished copy, nice and heavy, and the deckled edges that some of you hate so much. So, all right, so good. A big meaty biography is definitely a Steve book. So we're back in balance here. What's this next one? I'll make a mess, but then I'll clean up afterwards. Next, fantastic. This is a paperback reprint of something that I never thought would get a paperback reprint. This is also during early May. This is Robert Bellah. This is Religion in Human Evolution in paperback. From the Paleolithic to the Axial Age. And this was a let's see who does the blurbs for this. This was a thorn in my side for months after it cycled through my collection. I got the advanced copy and then I got a finished copy, and they both cycled through, and I was thinking about it. I read it and heavily annotated my advanced copy and loved it and argued with it on every page, but I never reviewed it. I don't know why. Every once in a while, every season, there's a handful of books like that where my engagement is total, where the book is doing everything right, and yet I don't review it, even though I have a journal where I can run my own reviews. I have a respected literary journal where I don't have to jump through hoops, where I don't have to go to some editor hat in hand and say, well, it's the 150th anniversary of so-and-so or whatever, which some editors require. I shouldn't cry a river because I'm largely free from those sorts of things. My editor at the National takes my suggestions or makes some of her own that are better than the ones that I suggested, but there's no dickering. There's nothing. It's assumed that I will do work for them. It's not, wow me. And the same thing is true. Every once in a while I review for the Washington Post, and there my editor, he's a wonderful guy, and he'll just, if he has a book in mind that says Steve, he'll just ask me. And I, of course, will say yes. And the same thing in the Christian Science Monitor here in Boston. My editor and I sit down and dicker over what we're going to do. But it's not a question of, what angle can I take that will convince you to let me do this? It's nothing like it's. In that sense, my experience is radically different from a lot of other working critics who do have to do that sort of thing. And God bless the ones who don't. Because you produce better work when you don't have to do that than when you do. That's so artificial. I've often thought that really good venues, the London Review of Books, the New York Review of Books, the TLS, once they get a writer that they like, someone that's proved they know what they can do, then you should listen to them instead of them listening to you. You should go to them and say, well, all right, now that we know you're a good writer, we want your best work. So what's interesting you? Here's a kind of a general idea of what we'd like to cover. How does this mesh with you? I wish there were more partnership like that for more writers. But anyway, that was a gigantic digression for this book. Let me read you about it. I wanted to see who did the blurbs because I know it got reviewed. Okay, Alan Wolfe reviewed it for the New York Times Book Review. Richard Wood reviewed it for Commonweal. And Peter Manso did it for Book Forum. That one I read. I don't remember reading it in the New York Times Book Review. And I don't read Commonweal. Perhaps I should. But I read Peter Manso's review, and it was really, really good. And look at that. That, for the paperback, is it. 3 blurbs. So maybe it wasn't as widely reviewed as I thought. I wish that I had done it. Let me read the description here. Religion in Human Evolution is a work of extraordinary ambition, a wide-ranging, nuanced probing of our biological past to discover the kinds of lives that human beings have most often imagined were worth living. It offers what is frequently seen as a forbidden theory of the origin of religion that goes deep into evolution, especially, but not exclusively, cultural evolution. And you might be able to, if you watch this channel for any length of time, you might be able to suss out right away some of the ways in which I argued with this author. I argued with this author from beginning to end in the book. And that was a delightful experience. I'm so happy that it's in paperback. That's great. So I got The Middle Ages by Johann Fried in paperback. Now I got Religion and Human Evolution in paperback. That's great. These scholarly houses not only printing these things, for a wide audience, although I don't know how wide that audience really is. But also reprinting them, giving them a paperback run. That's great. Uh, that's fantastic. I'm not sure. I mean, something like this, Harvard University Press, Religion and Human Evolution, 800 pages. I don't know for sure that, a bookstore chains throughout the American West, for instance, in southern Texas. Did anyone ever see this book? Was it ever actually for sale in a bookstore? I tend to think not. Maybe it wouldn't sell there, though. I know it was stacked in the Harvard bookstore in Cambridge. But which is it's not the Harvard Coop, the Harvard bookstore. It's not the school bookstore of Harvard University. It's a store called the Harvard Bookstore, and it's great. It's a destination bookstore. When you come to visit me, all of you, we will take the subway across the river, and I will show it to you. The remainder section has to be seen to be believed. All right, so let's move on here. I'm taking a leisurely approach to this thing. See, you people bring out the worst of me by encouraging this. I'm definitely blaming you. This one comes out in late May. It's by Sarah Yale Hirschhorn, and it is called City on a Hilltop: American Jews and the Israeli Settler Movement. Rather daringly with red, white, and blue on the cover. And then, well, that's just a daring cover altogether. Take a look at that picture. If you know anything about the Israeli settlement project, you will see the problem in that picture right there. That was well chosen. I just know this description is going to irritate me. Since 1967, more than 60,000 Jewish Americans have settled in the territories captured by the State of Israel during the Six-Day War. Comprising 15% of the settlement population today, these immigrants have established major communities, transformed domestic politics and international relations, and committed shocking acts of terrorism. They demand attention in both Israel and the United States, but little is known about who they are and why they chose to leave America to live at the center of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In this deeply researched, engaging work, the author unsettles stereotypes, showing that the 1960s generation who moved to the occupied territories were not messianic zealots or right-wing extremists, but idealists engaged in liberal causes. They did not abandon their progressive heritage when they crossed the Green Line. Rather, they saw a historic opportunity to create new communities to serve as a beacon, a city on a hilltop, to Jews across the globe. Oh my. Okay. Oh, it's the 50th anniversary of the 1967 war. I'm kind of surprised I haven't been flooded with books. I just realized that when I read this, that it's 50 years. Why haven't I been flooded with books on the subject? Well, maybe I will be. Maybe they're coming. Okay. All right, so now I want to know about you, Sarah. Who are you? She is a university research lecturer and Sidney Brichto Fellow at Israel Studies, at Faculty of Oriental Studies and Oxford Center for Hebrew Jewish Studies at the University of Oxford. Okay, so she's massively credentialed. And this is not about... This is not about the usual subject. This is not about Israelis moving into the settled areas that they stole from the Palestinians. This is about Jewish Americans moving into those same areas. Okay. Don't think I've ever read a whole book on that subject. Fantastic. Okay. All right, well, okay. A slight theme is developing here. I always like it when that happens. Books that Steve's going to argue with. That's and you'll notice by the expression on my face that I don't mind that at all. All right, let's move on here. This thing's big, but it's light as a feather. Could be a paperback. What have we got here? What is a paperback? Let's see. Okay, now see. All right. Okay. All right. This is due in November, and it is by Jeff Kohler, and it is Where the Wild Coffee Grows. And the subtitle is The Untold Story of Coffee from the Cloud Forests of Ethiopia to Your Cup. And the now see, the slightly annoyed now see, is is a little bit of an endemic Steve complaint, which is that this is going to have less substance than a lot of the books that we've seen so far. And Uh, it could still be good. It could still be very good. But I don't know. Let's read about it a little here. Coffee is one of the largest and most valuable commodities in the world. This is the story of its origin, its history, and the threat to its future. Located between the Great Rift Valley and the Nile, the cloud forests of southwestern Ethiopia are the original home of Arabica. Arabica? Don't drink coffee. Know precious little about it. The most prevalent and superior of the two main species of coffee being cultivated today. Virtually unknown to European explorers, the Kaffa region was essentially off limits to foreigners until well into the 20th century, which allowed the world's original coffee culture to develop in virtual isolation in forests where the Kaffa people continue to forage for wild coffee berries. Okay, so uh, I have a feeling this would appeal more if I were in the company of my countless legion of friends and acquaintances who need coffee to get through the day. Uh, I don't I don't scorn them the way I do tobacco addicts because you know coffee is as far as addictions go, it's a fairly benign one. It still takes a toll on your body. It strips the myelin sheathing from your nerves for one. When you can't get that back, stuff doesn't regrow. So all of it that you lose, you lose forever. But it's a very slow and gradual process of doing that, and your body has ways of compensating. I have found coffee addicts to be by and large the most accommodating addicts. But I think this book would probably appeal more to one of them than the very small minority of people who don't use caffeine. Uh, we shall see, though. It might be engagingly done. The only mew of dissatisfaction here is that we were doing so well with nice big meaty books. I'm not going to argue with a book about the history of coffee, but I'm probably not going to enjoy it either. But let's see what the next one is. It's tiny, so our okay. All right, this is a paperback original due in mid-May. And it's by Mary Mann, and it's called Yawn, Adventures in Boredom. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Let's not judge it out of the gate. Let's see if I find the cover description here is praising boredom, I'm going to be a bit irked. So let's see. It's the feeling your grandma told you was experienced only by boring people. Some say they're dying of it. Others claim to have killed because of it. It's a key component of depression, creativity, and sex toy advertisements. It's boredom, of course, and it's the subject of Yawn, a delightful and moving take on the oft-derided state of mind and how to deal with it. Deftly wrought from interviews, research, and personal experience, Yawn follows Mary Mann's search through history for the truth about boredom. Spanning the globe and introducing a varied cast of characters, we meet desert fathers, 4th century Christian monks who made their home far from civilization and who offer the first recorded accounts of lethargy. Thomas Cook, grandfather of the tourism industry, who provided escape from the mundane England's working class. Modern couples who are disenchanted by monogamous sex. Deployed soldiers who seek entertainment and connection in porn. And prisoners held in solitary confinement for whom boredom is a punishment. Okay. It has a blurb from Stacy Schiff, the author of Cleopatra and the Witches. And of course, the author need not write the back cover copy. They tend to approve it, but they don't have to write it. Okay. Boredom is not a key element in creativity, and calling boredom a key element in depression is flat out insulting. Dangerous, even. Perk yourself up. Try something new. A person in the grip of medical depression does not want to hear that. But it's a slim thing. It's tiny, and it's I don't know. You see what I mean? Do you see what I'm... All right, well, I welcome them all, and I will read all these things, but I make no secret of the fact on this channel between us that I have my preferences. And given the choice, a history of coffee or an examination of boredom over, for instance, religion and human evolution and American Jewish settlements in the occupied territories. All right, we've got one more. we're teetering on the knife edge here because this is half and half. Let's see what this is. It's big. It's heavy. Let's see what it is. Let's see if is it going to be column A or column B. Let's see. Let's see what this turns out to be. Oh. It's column A in a finished copy. Oh my, okay. Great. All right, this is due in mid-May, and we've seen it already on this channel. It's Autumn of the Black Snake. Nice meaty history book from Farrar, Straus, and Giroux. The creation of the U.S. Army and the invasion that opened the West. And it's got this nice, the letters are indented. Very nice. And it has blurbs from everybody in the world. All right. You probably remember my description before, but let's go through it again now that I have the finished copy. Great. When the Revolutionary War ended in 1783, the newly independent United States savored its victory and hoped for a great future. Yet the Republic soon found itself losing an escalating military conflict on its borderlands. In 1791, year of skirmishes, raids, and quagmire collapsed in a grisly defeat of American militiamen by a brilliantly organized confederation of Shawnee, Miami, and Delaware Indians. With nearly 1,000 U.S. casualties, this was the worst defeat the nation would ever suffer at native hands. Americans were shocked, perhaps none more so than their commander-in-chief, George Washington, who saw in the debacle an urgent lesson. The United States needed an army. Okay, I have a great desire to read this again. In fact, I might bump this right up to the top. I flew through the advanced copy and loved it. I really loved it, except, of course, for the hagiography for Washington. You just can't seem to escape it. I can't seem to escape it anywhere. And this author is at least more heavy-handed with Washington than they usually are. Wonderful. Okay, so we end on a strong note. We end on a serious work of history, an area of human history, of American history, that doesn't have anywhere near a representative share of popular histories like this is clearly intended to be. It's an era of United States history that Americans really don't know about. They really don't know. They know that most of them, some of them, half of them, know that we fought the Revolutionary War against the British. And won it. If you ask your average American, did we have any help from other powers in Europe, they'll say no. And I've actually asked people, did the native tribes in America join with the colonists to throw off the British? And they say yes. It's just Americans writing their own history because they're not taught it in school. They're not taught anything in school. But if you ask the average American, their knowledge of what happened after the war was over, after Cornwallis surrenders, there's a gap until, if you're lucky, the War of 1812 and nothing in between. And it's all fascinating. It's a 25-year period where the country could easily have died in its cradle. And yet the number of popular histories set there that might have a chance of reaching people, it's very small. So we've got Autumn of the Black Snake. We've got Yawn, about boredom. We have Where the Coffee Grows, a history of coffee. We have City on a Hilltop, new angle on the Arab-Israeli conflict that I'm eager to get to. Religion and Human Evolution, which I really think I ought to review as a paperback. Mary Dearborn's biography of Ernest Hemingway in a finished hardcover. White Man's Game, about game conservation, probably just in Mozambique, although it might be broader. And then Literary Criticism, a political history. So that's not a bad rainy day mail haul. And a hideously long video. Oh my God. Sorry about that. I'll stop now. I'll shut up and I'll go away. And I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.